Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a stigma for people to see a psychologist, probably even more so males. I've seen sports psychologists, but then half the reason I've seen just a normal psychologist is from depression and
The AllStar app, the number one app in the business. UFC, Bellator, One Championship, PFL, and more. Get the app right now. Link in description. All right, Rob. Thiago Santos, man. I think on social media you posted something about a big fight, and you got it, man. A big name, a guy that's fought many greats in a 205 division. What does this opportunity mean to you, or is it even an opportunity for you?
definitely. I think I'm very excited, very excited about this fight. I think it's a huge opportunity for me to kind of go out there and show that I'm one of the top light heavyweights in the world. He's, as you said, he's an amazing fighter. He's been around for ages, and he's been pretty much fighting the top five of the UFC for the last however many years. Leaving the UFC still in the top 10 rankings. So I think me going out there and making a statement and getting a finish on him kind of really does a lot for my career.
Yeah, definitely solidifies a lot of doubts in people's minds, if there are any doubts. And you've shown devastating power and phenomenal striking, which Santos also has. What is your breakdown of his stand up skills compared to yours?
Yeah, as you said, he's known to be very very powerful and some really fast and dynamic striking. At the same time, over the last few years, I think we've seen less and less of that. He's been going into the decision a lot. He's been kind of fighting on the back foot a lot, where I think he's kind of on the tail end of his career, and I'm just kind of getting started going into the next few years of mine. I think will be my prime and the best years of my career. So, I'm not, I don't disrespect him. I think he's got very good striking. He's a very dangerous fighter, and I think it's the biggest fight I've had to date. So I'm not taking him lightly by any means, but I think my style is going to overwhelm him in there.
Yeah, that leads to my next question about his recent performances. He's 5-5 in his last 10, but he's fought the best in the world. He's not a youngster though. I mean, he's sitting at 39 years old, tipping at 40, and there's a lot of film on him. Do you really see a decline? And what do you feel like it might be in part due to like a lot of the injuries that he sustained?
Yeah, definitely. After obviously he kind of had that run and fought John Jones for the title, and obviously had both knees operated on after that. Um, and for anyone, it's hard to come back from some of those injuries and surgeries as well when you're getting on in your career. Yeah, I think since then I've been watching a few of his fights, and he just seems less aggressive. He seems to fight more defensively, tries to be a bit safer, tries to counter fight a bit more and fight on the back foot, um, which I love. For me, I like going forward and putting the pace on people and putting the pressure on them, and I think it's going to match up well for me. That's
Do you, do you think like there's that doubt in his mind because of some of the injuries? This game's is so psychological, right? When you step in there, and especially when the guy that's in front of you is trying to hurt you.
Yeah, I think for anyone, especially when you start getting losses, like when you're winning and you're winning, you got a win streak. You're full of that confidence, and as you said, fighting's so mental, and you need that confidence going in there. And when you start losing fights, you can kind of start doubting yourself, or maybe I'm not as good as I used to be, or I thought I was, or whatever it is. So I think he'll have a lot of pressure on him trying to bounce back from those losses, come into a new promotion, and I've heard him say he thinks he's levels above the UFC guy, the PFL fighters. So I hope he thinks that PFL is a lower level and he's got easy fights coming to him, because I'm going to shock him on April 1st.
I don't know if that's safe to say that because we've seen a lot of guys come in from the UFC. You're a UFC guy, you know what I mean? But there's other guys that have come in and they've just not had that success like they did in the UFC. It could be an eye opener, man, and it's the worst kind of eye opening experience in that cage, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think as for me, like I was cut from the UFC I was still pretty young. I was only 25 when I had my two fights in there. But I think some of these guys that are kind of leaning towards the tail end of their careers, and they decide to leave the UFC and maybe go to the PFL thinking they're getting easier fights and making some money. as you said, yeah, it hasn't gone well for many of them.
We did a few interviews last year throughout the season, and you became that light heavyweight champion like you forecasted. And a lot of the fights, man, you predicted almost down to a T, like how you would win them. Even I think before the Amari fight, you told me that you were going to win in the second round, and you won in the second round, and you got all finishes. What's the secret sauce, man? Is there a secret sauce?
Just hard work, baby. It's like I don't know, like I think the time from getting cut from the UFC to struggling to book any fights to COVID happening and fights getting cancelled and not being able to do anything in Australia at all. I think that just kept building in me. Like I was training through it the whole time and looking forward to having an opportunity like I did last year. And I kind of said this before. Lots of fighters are saying how hard the season was, fighting 4 times in 8 months, back to back. And I didn't find it hard at all. I was so happy and so excited to be able to be active and be fighting and do what I love instead of spend like 4 years like I had training and for nothing, not for nothing, but like not to be able to show what you want to be showing and show what you're working on and do what you love. So, I think that's been a big part of it. Just that style, as well as moving to Denver last year and training with Mark at Factory X. He's such a good coach and just being really good at fixing a few holes in my game and just making me that well-rounded fighter.
You had great results inside the cage, but outside the cage in your preparations, were there mistakes made that you have to fix leading into this season?
Uh, definitely. I want to keep improving on last year. Like that's what one thing I was pretty excited about was I think I had a very good year. I dominated all my fights. I got all finishes. Uh, but I still thought, there's more of me to show, and that's not my best. Like I can still be better than I was last year, so that's exciting. And obviously, I've been back here in Denver working with Mark on that. Just fixing up the small things, making sure like changing bad habits. Like I knew I had a few bad habits before I came over here, but it's hard to get rid of them. And Mark's very good at just staying on me, making sure I get out of those bad habits. And I think that's been the biggest key to victory. Like we haven't been necessarily working on one thing or another for an opponent. We've just been fixing bad habits and making better habits for me as a fighter. So it doesn't matter who I'm fighting. It takes space for anyone. Yeah.
Those bad habits, man, when you're training and preparing for a fight, do you have like your opponents, or does the coach have the like your training partners, sorry, so your training partners come in during a sparring session and try to pull out those bad habits and then film it and then kind of show you like this is what you're doing and you need to kind of fix this. Is that the process maybe?
Not so much like the training partners will be usually doing their own thing, maybe sometimes trying to mimic a little bit, but I often find when people trying to mimic another fighter, they just end up being a worse fighter than they should be. Like it's better just them to be their best is better than them being, like a shitty version of your opponent. But yeah, it's more Mark, the coach. He's always watching, whether it's private sparring, a class, or whatever it is. He'll always be on to me, and as soon as he sees I'm doing the wrong thing, he'll remind me and make sure I get back into the right thing that we should be doing.
After the finals, you go back to Australia. I saw that you were still training out there. There wasn't even did you even have an off season?
It was funny. I kind of all year I was like, it's going to be good, and then at the end of the season, I'm going to have a bunch of time to kind of relax and do lots of things and see people and do a little trip in Tasmania, go camping, whatever it is. And I went to Mexico for 2 weeks after the fight, so I did have some time off, and then I got back to Australia, and I trained a little bit, and it was Christmas, and then it was the New Year, and then I'm straight back into it. Like I want to do all these things, but I'm like, well, I won it last year because I was dedicated and I was training the whole time, and I'm not going to change anything. So yeah, it wasn't as big a break as I thought, but yeah, I had some good times.
Yeah, and I saw that you were helping Jimmy Crute getting ready for his fight. And did you go train anywhere else? Work with any people in Australia outside of that?
Just like apart from my home gym in Hobart Hybrid Training Centre, yeah, just Jimmy Crute. I went and I've trained with him before and talked to him a bit, and obviously, you know, people your weight class and your level, you need to be training more and more with those guys. So it was good to be able to go and train with Jimmy for a week before leading into his fight.
So when exactly did you get back to Colorado?
About 5 weeks ago now. So I got told 8.5 weeks before the fight, April 1st, that I was fighting April 1st, Thiago. And then I booked a flight 3 days later to fly back to them. Yeah.
What's the perfect amount of time for you to get ready for a fight? Is it 8 weeks? Is it 6 weeks? Is it 10 weeks?
I like 8 weeks, especially if you're training. Uh, if you're still training, if you're coming off the couch or off an injury, obviously, I definitely wouldn't want 8 weeks. I'd want more like 12 weeks, 4 weeks, just to kind of get back into the swing of things. But yeah, eight weeks is a decent amount of time. That's what I normally kind of aim for.
What's the process to get ready for this upcoming season for you? You know, what I mean, is it more on the mental side or is it more on the physical?
Yeah, both. Like I make sure I do a lot of mental training and keep my mindset right, as well as I learned this last year and talking to other people. But like you fighting back to back to back, you got to make sure you're looking after your body and treating it right and taking the rest when you need it, because it's not just one fight you're training for. You have to get through that fight, win it, and then you got another fight 8 9 weeks later. So um, I think I managed everything pretty well last year. So I'll be kind of looking just to do the same sort of thing.
Yeah, it seems like your teammates have to be very wary of what you're going through as well, right? In training, so they don't go too hard at the wrong time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everyone's pretty good there. Like we don't normally have too many bad injuries or anyone going too crazy or anything like that. So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, benefits of being it's not a smaller team, but a more close knit team, so to say.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Everyone's close with each other, and it's really good, especially with there's not heaps of bigger guys, but when the bigger guys, we've all got fights coming up, and it's always nice to all be training in the same, in a fight camp together and helping each other out. And you know, I'm always straight back or have a little bit of time off. Everyone has, their week off, but then comes back and helps the next person out for their fight. So
Last year, man, you had some devastating performances. Now you get a big name, a nice big head to maybe mount on your wall, so to say. What are you expecting? Like, what do you envision in this one?
yeah, I envision I want to fight just like I did last year, and especially someone like him who's known for his power, known for his striking. He's a really big name. People are scared of fighting him, and I want to go steamroll him. I want to go forward, and I want to break him. And I think it would be do amazing things for my career and my name to go out there and get like a highlight reel knockout or put him away early, and yeah, that's what I'm envisioning.
During a recent podcast you did, you talked about utilizing a psychologist. Is that something you still do to help you with your performance inside that cage?
Uh, Not so much recently. I have at times, although my girlfriend is a psychologist, so that can
Oh,
help.
okay.
But things I've definitely learned from seeing a psychologist, I keep doing to this day. And I've seen a sports psychologist before, as well as just a regular psychologist. And uh, it's definitely not a bad idea to keep going seeing one. But at the moment, I feel comfortable with what I'm doing at the moment, and how I get my mind right for fighting.
Do you feel like that's still a stigma in fighting, or was it even a stigma from where you're from, like the country you're from?
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a stigma for people to see a psychologist. Probably even more so males. I've seen sports psychologists, but then half the reason I've seen just a normal psychologist is from depression and stuff like that, which is often based around my training, based around my fighting that I kind of have talked through as well. And that's a big part of what I try and bring to fighting. Like it was actually. It was interesting to think back. Like when I signed with the UFC, I hated training at that point. I didn't even watch UFC. I watch just about every fight card these days, and I used to be like that. And then for a period of times, I was just like not interested in it. I signed, and obviously I was excited to sign with them, but at the same time, some of those fights I didn't even want to fight. And I just wasn't enjoying it. And I wasn't enjoying training. I felt like I had to train because it was my job, not because I enjoy it. And getting cut from the UFC was probably the probably the best thing that happened to me. It made me take some time off and move home, and I kind of took some time off and started just training just for the fun of it. And I wasn't planning on fighting anytime soon, and just like fell in love with it again, and found that passion that I used to have when I was younger, and I still got that passion now. That's a big thing. I make sure I take into, like, make sure you're enjoying things, make sure you're happy, because that's what, like, why else would I do it if I, like, it's a stupid job or sport to do if you don't enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely, man. And it's almost as like it happened. Everything happened for a reason, man, for you, because now you're sitting here, a champion, heading into another season, another opportunity to defend your title and to win a lot more money. You know what I mean? It's always a good thing. April 1st, man, you start your season. Go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app. Rob, thank you so much, man, for the time, and hopefully we'll be speaking many, many times this season.
Appreciate it. Thank you.